I'm Nicholas Falk, and I founded Neighbourhood in 1976 with a mission to come up with practical solutions to regenerating rundown areas, but increasingly we've been concerned with how to create new communities and what kind of housing we need in the 21st century.
I'm David Budlin. I'm a planner by profession. I work for Neighbourhood in our Manchester office, and I'm an urban designer and master planner, but also writer and researcher. Well, the book was originally written for planners, and it was written through a frustration that planners were messing up cities, and it was an attempt to rethink the way that they looked at cities and the way that they were designed. But the reality is it's not just planners who are messing up cities, it's a whole range of urban professions, particularly architects and highway engineers, and it's really designed to set out a new way of thinking about urban areas and how they work as a whole as opposed to a set of disciplines, which is the way professions have tended to think about cities in the past, and to paint a new vision for the future that they can follow.
The first one is, if you read this book and no other, you will understand how we have the housing that we've got in Britain, the underlying thinking and the process of how it's been developed. Secondly, you'll find a whole series of inspiring case studies. We've sought to pick the best examples in both Europe and Britain for models for the future. And thirdly, there's a whole lot of practical information from densities to dimensions, which can allow people who are faced with practical issues to resolve them fairly readily.
The book has been completely rewritten. It isn't just a case of adding a few sections in. It actually had to. We started off thinking we could add a chapter here or add a bit to each chapter, but actually, when we got into it, we had to rewrite the whole thing. And so every sentence has been looked at again. And the reason for that was because things have changed completely over the last 10 years. I mean, to give a couple of examples, the recycling rate when we first published it was 5%, and it's now 30%. The average density of new housing was 23%, and it's now over 40%. And so actually, a lot of the things that we were suggesting should happen have happened, and it's good to reflect that.
Well, I suppose an obvious answer is read the book, and let's say beyond that, go and look at the places that we've described and assess for yourself whether you think they're successful. Then try and get involved in projects, however small.
I mean, some of the best feedback we've had of the first edition book is from students, saying that of all the books they were taught in their courses, this is actually one of the ones that confused them about the subject as opposed to just giving them lots of technical information. And I guess that's the thing that you need to be most concerned about. I mean, you've got to be enthusiastic about your subject and enthusiastic about the change that you can make, whether you're an architect or an engineer or a planner. And that, I think, is what we want to instill in people.